Okay, hi guys. I'm Christy, if you don't know who I am, but you guys all should know who I am by now. Today we're going to be talking about teaching expectations with Dr. Terry Lewis, all the way from Oregon. Thank you, Terry. Thanks, Terry. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. If you have not joined us before, please mute your microphones. And if you look at the bottom of your window, there should be a little microphone icon. And if you click on it and there's a line through it, that means it's muted. If it's green, that means your microphone is on. And you can also see it on the little participant tab on the right-hand side. If you're looking at your collaborate panel, you'll see purple arrows. If you click on it, you can see the chat feature, and you can type in questions here during the presentation. You can see yourself logged on as well as the other participants, and you can see whether your mic is on or off. At the bottom of the panel, you'll also see the video feature, and you can turn it on if you would like, and we can turn it on during our little breakout session as well. And then to the right of that, you will see the little hand. So if we can all practice raising our hand if you have a question, and it should show your hand with a little red circle. That means it worked. Okay, so you can raise your hand at any time, and we'll try to stop if there's a moment to answer some questions. And we're going to start with a 3-minute relaxing song or reflection time. So at this time you can journal, or you can just sit and absorb the music. You can do some meditation or some breathing. So we're going to start that now, and then when we come back, I will turn it over to Dr. Terry Lewis. Okay, and here we go. Okay. I hope that you had a good 3 minutes of reflection time. I forgot that we want to kind of briefly introduce ourselves for the ones that Terry has not met yet. So if we can go around, introduce ourselves real quick, and maybe share what you did in those last 3 minutes. I guess I'll start. I'm Christy again, and what I did was I kind of got up, stretched, and did a little dance party by myself. Next, Leah.
Sorry, still finishing my breakfast. Drinking my coffee. That's my relaxation.
That's awesome. Okay, Camille? Maybe Camille's mic is not working.
Sorry.
Oh.
What was the question?
Introduce yourself for people who have not met you, which I'm sure everyone has, and what you did in the last 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm Camille, and I thought about how to configure my new sofa in my living room.
Ooh, that's fun. Thank you. Okay, AJ and Pebbles, if you're there.
Hi, good morning. I'm Pebbles. The day is running out, so we're here. But the last few minutes, I was just listening to the music and relaxing.
Sorry, Pebbles, you're breaking up. Can you try that again, please?
I was sitting and listening to the music, just relaxing.
Awesome. And is AJ still there?
He just walked out.
Okay, we'll go to him later.
All right.
And I see that Cooney and Linda joined us during the music. You want to talk about if you had a chance to do anything in those 3 minutes? We'll start with Linda.
Hey, I was trying to figure out how to get onto Blackboard again because I'm learning, and just texting good morning to everybody.
Nice. Technology Skills Saturday, right? We're all practicing.
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly it.
Yes, I know. It's a struggle for me too. I'm definitely being stretched in this season of technology.
Me too. But thank you.
Learning together. Okay, Cooney, do you want to share what you did in the last couple minutes, if you had a chance?
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm Kunio Mishibata, Kuni, and I'm a assistive technology specialist. I'm really looking for today.
Yay, thanks, Cooney.
Okay.
Okay, and Nikki?
Hi, I'm Nikki, and I just closed my eyes and listened to the music.
Nice. I can't do that or else I'll fall asleep. Okay, so remember that during our session to practice Hakalau, big picture thinking, when you're looking at your monitor, try to see the ceiling and the walls on each side. And I'm going to turn it over to Terry to see what she did in the last 3 minutes, and then you can go ahead and take over. Thanks, Terry.
Oh, all right. Well, it's afternoon here for me, but good morning to you guys. And in the last 3 minutes, I just relaxed and listened to the music. Think about social emotional learning, especially if we're thinking about early childhood and the importance that social emotional learning has, not only for our children, when they're little, but how they carry those skills forward. Some of the key social emotional skills we think about are, can we help our kids develop confidence? Can we help them develop that capacity to build good relationships? not just with the adults in the room, but also with their peers. Concentration and persistence on challenging tasks. One of the things that kids kind of struggle sometimes, moving from preschool to kindergarten and kindergarten into first grade, is being able to continue to try when things get challenging. And we know we're trying to learn something, we need to have that persistence, right? We need to be able to say, okay, it's frustrating now, but it'll get easier for me. We also need to know how to effectively communicate our emotions. You know, especially when little kids don't have a lot of like language, or they're learning language. How can they express their feelings, what's happening inside of them? How do they listen, pay attention? And then how do they solve problems, whether it's a social problem with a peer or an adult, or whether it's, you know, a more practical problem or an academic problem. So we know that we have this whole list of skills. So what happens when our children don't have these skills? What are some of the things that that we see? And like, again, you can either type them in the chat box, or you can just click on and off your mic. So what happens when our children don't have these kinds of skills?
My name is Linda, and I work in a special education, fully self-contained classroom. And and when they do not have language, I see a lot of like hurting to get what they want, or, you know, screaming, or even I have ones that just withdraw, you know, inside themselves. So I see a lot of that, a lot of scratching or biting themselves or things like that. That's what I see.
Yeah, you find that just because we don't have the skills, we still have those needs, right? We still have those emotions. And so we tend to see kids use the only skills they have, you know, and sometimes those are, you know, maybe aggressive or more physical. You see a lot of frustration, screaming, crying, those sorts of things, right? Any other? Yeah, and it's hard. I started out in working with kids who had severe disabilities, and it's hard when they don't have sort of typically developing language. So then how do we, as we're going to talk about, how do we teach them, you know, a way to say, hey, I'm having a bad day, or I want to be left alone, or I want you to come talk to me, you know, come help me. All right, thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else have thoughts or they want to add to, is it Linda, what Linda was saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Terry, this is Pebbles.
Yeah, hi.
I have a child. I work with the 3-year-olds. And very strong-willed. I can explain to him, by explaining to the class about playground rules, what things they can't do, like running on the structure. Then when he gets hurt or when he falls, he comes to me and he tells me, my hands. So I explain to him, don't you remember the rules? So I repeat to him and I ask him to repeat to me what I just said. I have no words coming out of him. I can't seem to, I know he understands what I'm telling him, but for me to get a repeat after me, I won't get anything at all.
Well, and part of it is, it's like, it would be great if when you said, hey, can you tell me, that if he would do that, you know, answer back. But part of it is thinking about, okay, that would be nice, but the real thing is we want him to be safer at recess, you know, and strong-willed can be an awesome trait, but kids have to learn when it's appropriate to use that skill and when it's maybe less appropriate to use that skill. And it's hard. 3 years old, little kid, right? Lots of excitement. So, and you know, it may be that he doesn't have a lot of access to playground equipment, and then it's super, super exciting, and that maybe even knows what the expectation is, but you know, but then the slide's right there, you know, and it's so cool, and I could just run up it, and I could, you know, do all these things, and so it's very hard to compete. So a lot of it, especially something like recess, a lot of it sort of we look at what the adults do. So we're going to talk about teaching expectations today, teaching those kinds of skills, and a big, big part of it is the follow-up, the after we've used the words. It's the feedback we give, it's the prompts, it's the reminders, you know. So if he's going at recess, you can talk about how to make good choices and try to help him make a plan on what he's going to do. And then a lot of it's going to be what the adults are doing, how they supervise. We do a lot of what's called active supervision in those kind of settings.
Yes, awesome.
So, huh?
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I see CJ raise a hand, so if you want to click on your mic, if you can get your mic to work so you can talk, that would be perfect.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sorry I tuned in late. If I'm totally off the mark, let me know. I'm thinking of this from the speech therapy point of view and how we have to give them their speech. So they're going to tantrum and they're going to fuss and they're going to fall out and they're going to hit their head. And we have to tell them, you're mad. I see that you're angry. And then maybe explain why, if you know why. Oh, Billy popped your balloon. That makes you so mad. Like, and you can just see it. Like, oh my gosh, you get it. That's what I'm feeling. And sometimes they'll come out of it and then you could teach them, like, you could sit here and dwell and be mad, or we can move on and there's a ball. Let's go play with the ball. The ball could be fun. Am I on the right mark? Am I like,
you are, you are spot on. Spot on, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So that it works with adults too. If they're sitting and they're wallowing in their sorrow, you can join them for a hot minute and be like, oh, that sucks. Wow, that's bad. But let's try to focus on something else.
Yeah, and you, I mean, you put it at a lot of really key things that we can do to help kids learn these, you know, and one of the things you said is you can help label what emotion you think they're experiencing. We can also help kids by labeling our emotions and sharing our emotions and our feelings when we have them. You know, we can say, wow, this happened and I'm feeling really sad today. You know, here's what makes me sad, or wow, I'm feeling really happy today, or, you know. So it's good for us to help them label their emotions, but have them see that we have emotions as well, and be very open with them. So
yeah, I like that.
Great discussion. Anyone else want to make a comment before we move on from this? All right, thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the conversation, because that's really, you know, it's again like we're talking about with kids. I can sit here and read these to you, but it's really the discussions we get to have that are going to help us sort of say, okay, now I'm getting it, and now I can figure out how to take it back, you know, into my classrooms. I come from a perspective where I really look at when a student makes an error, when they have a behavior that we would rather not see, playing inappropriately or playing unsafely at recess, you know, we step back and say, well, I'm going to take an instructional approach. So we can look and say, does the student really have the skills? You know, do they understand what we're asking them to do? And we do this all the time with academics. We sometimes forget that our social skills are skills too. And so do they even know what safe is at recess? We spend a lot of time with elementary schools talking about playground behavior, because one way that I play at home with my brothers and sisters, or I play at the park with my family, that may not be the way that I can play at the recess equipment at school, even though it looks exactly the same. So we look at the skill. Do they even know it? Then we can look at, do they know when to use the skill? So they have it, but they're not sure when or where we use it. And so it's sort of a quick, easy example is when we're in schools, we like to have kids raise their hands if they want to ask a question or make a comment. But a lot of times you'll see kids, when they're first learning that in school, they will be at the dinner table and they'll raise their hands. to ask a question or make a comment. So we have to do this kind of generalization kind of teaching where we say use it here but not here. Use it now but not now. So we have to help them distinguish, when do they use those skills. Or we don't have the routines and the procedures down. There's a way we want it to happen so that it's predictable and consistent, and we haven't really been very clear about that. We just kind of assume that they'll figure it out. Another error we make with social skills is that we teach it somewhere where we don't expect to see it. So if we want to teach, and I was very guilty of this early on in my career, is how we always taught social skills. We teach social skills like Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 9:30. And we would get awesome social skills Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 9:30, but we wouldn't get them in the hallway, or we wouldn't get them after 9:30. We wouldn't get them back at the classroom with their classroom teacher or at home. So if we want to teach how to be on the playground or how to ride the bus, we have to teach it in the playground. We have to teach it on the bus. If we want them to learn how to cross the street, we got to go out to where there's a street. So they start making those associations with a skill in a particular sort of environment. And that makes it harder to do, but it's absolutely sort of critical. It's one of the things that makes teaching social skills sometimes even a little bit harder than teaching sort of the academic skills. So why are we concerned? Why does it even matter if we teach social behavior? Well, a lot of times there are prerequisites for academics. It's really hard to benefit from instruction unless we're kind of present. We have that persistence. We're paying attention, right? We're kind of in the moment so that we can benefit from the academic instruction. We like those routines because they build structure for us. They build predictability. And if you think about your life, and I know for me in particular, I kind of like to know what my day is going to be like. When I get to work, I kind of want to know that it's going to be similar to it was yesterday. Some of my tasks may change, but I want my coworkers, I want my office, I want my supervisors, right? I want all that kind of predictability. So we use routines. Partly how we get there to learn anything is repetition. And so there's something out there called errorless learning, which just says, let's do everything we can, set up the environment, use instruction, so that kids get it right the first time, right? We want to minimize the number of errors that they make. Why? Well, we know learning something, even if you're pretty successful, is tough. It takes on average about 8 times to do something to even start to get to that acquisition stage, like really even not to fluency yet with learning, but just that initial learning takes about 8 times. Now, if we have practiced an error, we've been doing something a little bit differently, to change how we do something, change a routine, change a habit, now we have to practice it like 28 times. So it is super hard to, I see Chrissy's making a comment, wow, about that. It's really, really hard. Think about you as an adult. I just upgraded my phone, the software on my phone yesterday, and how I unlock my phone so I can use it is completely different than what it was before. And today has been a very frustrating day because every time I try to open my phone, I try to swipe and it wants me to tap, So it takes us a really, really long time to relearn how to do something. So when we think about social behavior, especially early learning, we want to make sure kids do it the first time. Another kind of funny thing that tends to happen, and it's not been you, but a lot of times we'll go in and we kind of say, if we're teaching 2 plus 2, right, and we want them to say 2 plus 2 is 4, and they're struggling, well, then we kind of assume they haven't learned it, right, that maybe they learned the wrong answer. So we're going to step back and go, okay, well, problem is they don't know the answer to 2 plus 2 is 4, so I'm going to figure out why, and then I'm going to change how I teach. I'm going to focus on, the instruction. I'm going to give lots of feedback, let them practice, right? And we're going to say, the student now has been taught the skill, and now they know 2 plus 2 is 4, and so when I ask, they're going to tell me 4. Now, if we take that sort of same kind of little scenario, but we switch, and it's it's not, 2 plus 2 is 4. It's yelling for the teacher without raising their hand, just yelling out in class. Well, we now, instead of saying, well, maybe the student didn't learn it the right way or they learned it, a wrong way, we kind of start putting labels on them. They're disruptive. They're not cooperative. And we make this assumption to them sometimes that the student knows what they're supposed to do, but they've chosen to do something different. So at that point, then we say, you know what, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to have a timeout, right? You're going to, have to miss recess. Something's going to happen. And we often withdraw students from the social contact, remove them from that normal sort of routine, and we assume that by providing that punishment, the kid will have learned how to behave, how to, raise their hand before calling out in class. And what we know is punishment reduces behavior. It doesn't teach behavior, right? It can help make it clear, what's right and what's wrong. It can help clear up that gray kind of stuff, but we have to use instruction and feedback and encouragement, acknowledgement to actually change a social behavior. So we're going to take exactly what we do with academics, and we're going to tie it to social behavior, right? So when we talk about teaching our values, right, the values that we talked about last time, we really kind of recommend that those are taught right at the beginning of the year. And then if we are starting to experience students are having trouble, then we can review when we need it. A lot of times we'll review after those big breaks, the winter break when they've had several weeks at home, or a spring break, or if something happens because of weather and school's closed for a while. Anytime they've been out of the school environment, we do little reviews. So we're going to go through, we're going to say, first thing is we're going to sort of give them a rationale for why we're teaching that value. Why is it important? Then we're going to make sure they know, and we're going to sort of describe it. So last time we built that behavior matrix where we took our values and we looked across all the different settings that we have, and we say, here is what persistence looks like in the classroom, in the cafeteria. Here is what respect looks like, when we're in the hallway, when we're in the bathroom, when we're, wherever those settings are. So we've given ourselves what it looks like. Now we're going to pull those examples in and use them as teaching tools for us, teaching examples. We also want to make sure that the students get a chance to practice, right? That they really understand this, not this, that we don't have still a lot of gray and confusion. So a lot of times we'll have the students role play, right? We can have them practice, we can role play. If they're older, a lot of times we'll have students write a short story about when they use that value. You can draw pictures. Here's a picture of me being respectful at home. Here's a picture of me being respectful in school. Here's a picture of me being respectful in the community. And then, like I said, we're going to reteach and we're going to acknowledge it's that follow-up piece that we're going to do. So, like I said, a lot of those things, that's our basic lesson plan. We're going to explain the rationale, teach, ask for examples, like have a discussion around it. We'll model the behavior so teachers can role play it, right? Examples and non-examples. Then we'll have the student practice. I tend to, as a general rule, because what we just talked about, that we don't want to practice errors, I tend to not have students practice the problem behavior, right? And as kids get older, if you choose the right kids, you can have them do videos, and that can be funny. But I tend to, especially if they're really, really little, I don't have them practice the wrong way. I only want them to practice the right way. But I might show them as an adult so they get to kind of see both. The big part, even though it's only one line, the big part is that follow up the lesson. Are there videos, are there skits, are those pre-corrections if you're going out into recess to remind them, here's how we're safe at recess, we've got a visitor in our class, here's how we're respectful when we have a visitor. Yes, kids are hams and do love watching themselves. Someone just posted that. It's a great way to get that buy-in. It's a great way to have to have them be a part of it. We talked about having them be a part of it, like helping define or identify what the values are, helping to, define those even further. So we definitely want students involved and families involved as much as we can as we go through. So here's a quick lesson template that was built actually by middle school, and they called it their cool tools. And so here's an example of how to get help, right? How to ask for assistance when things are difficult. And they go through and they've got these 3 examples. When you're working on a math problem and you can't figure it out, raise your hand and wait until the teacher can help you. So they give really specific examples, that have like contextual kinds of information on it. Then there's a kid activity. Have them give an example of where they needed a skill, ask them to practice how they could get help, right? So, and then after the lesson, so we do that pre-correct. Just before giving students a difficult or new task, remind them or say, hey, who can, if you get stuck, who can tell me what's the way to get help, and have the students start generating, here's what I can do if I get stuck. And when you see them having a difficult time, remind them of that skill. Remind them of what they had just learned. And then when they do it the right way, they raise their hand, whatever the skill is that you've wanted them to do, you say, wow, thank you so much. You did such a great job asking for help. I really like, how clear you were, how patient, right? Very clear, specific kinds of feedback, not just great or thanks, right? We want to give as much context as we can to sort of help them understand social behavior. So another thing we can do is we can arrange the environment to do reminders, right? So here you see a hand washing sequence that's in a bathroom, and it says, first I wash my hands, then I dry my hands, then I put the paper towel in the trash can as opposed to on the floor. So it helps us sort of remember to do all of the steps, right? So we can look around our classroom and say, what are the things I can do to help remind kids, how to be respectful, how to be responsible, all those kind of things. So we do a lot of this by saying, how we set up our classroom designs and say, this is the teacher area, this is the group area, this is where you put your personal belongings, this is where academic material are, helping as much as possible to set the environment up to say, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do now. So other things that we can do, right? Things that we know sort of foster that emotional literacy, foster our social emotional learning. We can have books about feelings that are in our story center. We can read those books as a group, or we can have, if we have kids who are old enough to read, they can read those books. Having photos of people showing various emotional expressions, right? Having those around the room. Again, here's what it looks like. I love the idea of adults labeling their emotions so that kids see that adults feel the same way they do. As I think it was Christy was saying earlier, noticing and labeling the children's feelings for them helps them put a label on what they're feeling, so it'll be easier for them in the future to talk about it. And then have activities where you get to teach and reinforce emotional literacy. Have activities where they get to practice with emotions or talk about emotions. And then when they express their emotions, right, they use those good feeling words. Acknowledge them for that. Even if their feeling words are they don't like you, or you're a jerk, or they're unhappy, or whatever, help them, sort of learn how to use those feeling words the right way. And so much of it, like we were going to talk about how we teach it directly, but so much of it is just that day-to-day, in-the-moment, incidental teaching, right? It's one thing, we can teach reading anywhere, right? Because reading stays the same no matter where we are. It's the same kind of skill that goes across. Social skills are a little bit different. It changes based on the environment, right? As we do that with voice levels, because voice levels change based on where we are, what's happening, those sorts of things. So we sort of up our game a bit when we talk about social behavior. All right. So let's have another sort of discussion. And again, raise your hand, just unmute your mic. We're still a pretty small group that, and you guys are very polite, so we can take turns. But I want you to think about what the social skill you would like to see in your classroom, and then think about how you might help your students learn this social skill.